Everybody, welcome to Hit Rewind, the podcast devoted to all sorts of crap. Should I do a take two? All right, everybody, it's been a stressful day. We are now into 1993, obviously, and we are finally wrapping up the very last episode of 1993, I think, right? Are we on schedule? What do we got left?
I think there's like still a movies one
There's a
to
movie
do.
one, okay. We're going to be discussing the albums of 1993. John has picked his 10, I've picked my 10, and we are ready to discuss them.
Let's do it.
Isn't it nice, listeners? John probably can't tell. For the last 6 weeks, my phone was fucked up, so I had to shove into like this makeshift speaker, and now it's on an actual speaker, and things sound better. John can hear himself now, and that's probably why he can tell.
Yeah, I've got a little ghost in the background of me, so at least it's not loud enough to cause me to start just doing stuff like that.
Yeah. All right, so I think it's your turn this time.
Okay, then let's kick things off with probably the one that you didn't like.
Ooh, which one is this?
This is Heartwork by Carcass.
Oh, yeah, made it maybe a minute into it. I'm sorry, it's just not my style.
But it's one of those bands of the death metal and grindcore genre, like one of the first ones. Like their debut hit in '88. And does the name John Peel mean anything to you?
Yeah, isn't that the guy who used to sell the stuff on TV late at night, John Paul Peel?
No. Or, I don't know, have you heard about John Peel Sessions? Okay, for those who don't know, he was this radio DJ in Britain, and one of the things that he had was he would bring bands on and have them play on the show. And I mean, these are bands that you know really well. And Carcass was one of these bands. You know, it's insane because you have like, oh yeah, you know, you'd have like, you know, Radiohead and shit, and Carcass is one of these bands along with them. So they got a lot of notoriety because of his promotion.
Okay.
And, okay, their early catalog is filled with songs like Exhume to Consume and Manifestation of Varicose Urethra. You know, songs that, let's just say, probably aren't the sort of stuff that you would necessarily put on mainstream radio. But as time went along, they started building themselves into a little bit more of a cohesive unit, and they start, like, by the time this album comes along, they were starting to put melody, and yes, that's a weird thing to say when it comes to death metal, but that's effectively what they started doing. Was instead of just being hard-hitting, fast, angry things, now these songs actually have more to it, more get melody. Now, you know, it's like, if you haven't heard the record, which obviously you did,
Sorry.
these two obvious, you think these things couldn't coexist, but they do. And this isn't necessarily the most accessible album. The one that follows it is a little bit more so, but I definitely think this is their best. And there are videos made from this album for the songs No Love Lost and Heartwork. And those songs, along with the track This Mortal Coil, really are the highlights of this album, even though this whole thing is all killer, no filler. But since you didn't listen, I can't have you comment any more than that, so I guess we should get going. So what's your first one?
It's okay. I'm curious of the ones that I had too. You said there was something you were like, but I get the feeling maybe this first one might be one of those is 311 Music, their debut.
I will say this. They definitely got better.
Yes, okay, so I'll say this. There's two different worlds of 311. In fact, I was listening to 311 at the gym today. And there's the early 90s version, which is more heavier, more punk, rap rock, whereas the version that we've heard over like the last 20 years is more like the bands that they inspired, like Slightly Stupid and stuff like that, where it's more melodic, more low key, like, hey, let's just get stoned and hang out on the back porch, whatever, at a a cookout or something like that with our family. So there's two different schools of 311. Yeah, and I think their lyrics got a little more elaborate, but I'm still thoroughly entertained by this album.
Well, it is. This isn't a particularly bad album, but I don't think it's a very memorable one either.
No, it took a couple. The first two were just them trying to find their footing. And then, of course, the one from 96 is where they really blew up.
Yeah, like, I remember listening to Grassroots, years before, and I hated it. So this is one that I kind of just gave a pass until you had me listen to it. And I'm kind of glad that you did, because, I like 311 for the most part, and it's kind of nice to actually go and give this one the fair shake that it deserved.
Yeah. Well, do you think like later, as rap rock had died, around 2001, 2002, as it was just going away, they started changing their sound, and you realize that both are actually excellent singers.
Oh yeah, I generally think their last two albums have been really, really good.
The new stuff's more chill for sure. All right, your turn.
Let's see. All right, Manic Street Preachers, Gold Against the Soul.
Now, I cannot remember this album. I listened to it twice. I can't remember it. That's not a good sign, but also I have a very bad memory lately. And I didn't remember hating it. What kind? Was it electronica?
No, this was just a rock album.
Okay. Why can't I remember? This is so weird, but go ahead.
Well, that's the thing is, I don't have anything really to say about it other than you should listen to it, because it's one of my favorite albums of all time, and they're a hell of a group to check out. But I decided to kind of go and talk about the disappearance of Richie Edwards, their guitarist.
Oh, okay.
Because in '95, the day that they were set to fly off from London to the U.S. for a tour, he fell off the face of the earth. He had basically, over the course of 2 weeks, had withdrawn a total of 2,800 pounds.
Uh-huh.
People thought maybe it was for the tour, or maybe it was going to pay for this desk that he ordered. He gave a friend of his a book and told him to read the introduction, which was about a person going into a mental institution before vanishing. He sent a package to an on and off girlfriend filled with books and videos, decorated it to look like a present. He then checks out of his hotel, leaves the suitcases and some toiletries behind. He apparently went to this apartment he had in Cardiff, left behind his passport and Prozac. And then, last time anyone saw him, or reportedly saw him, was within this 2-week period where a taxi driver claims that he picked him up, and the guy was pretending to have this Cockney accent that would drift into his Wales accent. And then a fan saw him at a bus station. 2 weeks after he left, his car was found and ticketed at the service station, which then 3 days later it was reported as abandoned.
That's wild.
Now apparently the service station was close to this bridge called the Severed Bridge, which is a known suicide spot.
Oh no.
And now those who know him say that he would never have committed suicide. And he's even the year before in an interview was talking about how suicide would not be something that he would ever consider. So they kind of left it open as a missing persons case, and about 2008 was when they finally determined him as presumed dead.
That is one crazy mystery.
Yeah, it's a shame, and because this album, the one prior to it, and the one right after it, where he disappeared after, are all amazing albums, and the band's still around. They still carried on, but I genuinely think that they never reached the highs, especially this album right here. But seriously, give this album a spin. It is phenomenal.
All right, my turn.
Your turn.
All right, Tool, Undertow. This is their debut, correct?
This is their debut album. They do have an EP that came before it, but
yeah. It's just so. I remember seeing the videos and thinking that I've never ever seen anything like this before. And the fact that they never really wanted to be in front of the camera, that they created these little movies with claymation and stuff like that. And I think all of us were kind of in awe. Even if you weren't a fan of the music, you were like, "What am I watching? This is something new." And you know, there's long gaps between their albums and stuff like that. And there's Perfect Circle mixed in there somewhere, or whatever. But I really think they're one of the best of. They're that weird middle ground between like dark, alternative, and industrial. Like they found that middle ground where it works really well.
Yeah, this is like an album that's commonly referred to as a alternative metal album because it's heavy, but it's also not as heavy as like a say a thrash album or something.
Right. Well, would this be considered progressive metal then?
Not this one. Definitely stuff later. They definitely become much more of a prog metal band later on. But yeah, of the 5 albums that they've put out, I only really like 3 of them. And this, I think, is the weakest of those 3.
Okay.
But this also has some of their best songs ever recorded. Because you have Sober, you got, Bottom is a hell of a track, Crawl Away, Intolerance. It's like, but you kind of get to like, down to like a Swamp Song, and you start noticing that these songs aren't as unique as later stuff that they put out. And so just kind of the sameness to the album, it just kind of gets a little bit boring after a while.
I can see that, yeah.
And I mean, hell, look up if you've never seen it. Look up Bottom, but the live version from Lollapalooza with Zach De La Rocha doing it.
Oh wow! Okay, that was 94, right? Or 95?
93. That was in 93 also.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's Henry Rollins does the album cut, but yeah, like I said, Zach De La Rocha does the live version.
Nice. All right, I'm done. Your turn.
That's it? Wow. Okay. Well, how about Steve Vai's Sex and Religion?
Holy crap, I never expected this from you, by the way. You never seemed like the kind of guy that would just pick like a straight up guitar album. Like, if Yngwie Malmsteen showed up, we're like, what? But Steve Vai's is a little bit different because they do have lyrics, and I did not expect that.
Well, that's the thing, is the first 2 Steve Vai solo albums are instrumentals. This one, he basically went and decided to do something a little bit different and put together a band called Vai. And he ended up plucking this young singer and guitarist by the name of Devin Townsend, who had recently signed to Relativity Records after giving them an impressive demo. And he gets this young kid up and puts him as the forefront of his new band.
Why do I know the name?
Because I'm usually talking about him probably off thing. We will be hearing some Devin Townsend stuff in '96.
Okay.
But so this band they put together only lasted the record, and you got a weird, kind of a weird thing out of it, don't you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you're really at that crossroads where the last of the hair metal world is gasping for air. You have like a little bit still existing from Aerosmith and Def Leppard. Poison put out a decent album, but you're really like, this is the end. And Steve Vai feels like you remember Get a Grip from Aerosmith, where they kind of knew what was coming and they tried to mix both of the upcoming alternative world with the old hair metal stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what this feels like.
Yeah, and what's funny is, again, because you have Devin Townsend, who is this musical chameleon of a guy, and...
Is he Buckethead? Is that his...
No.
You're going to surprise me with something.
No, but you kind of hear a little bit of what you would get in store with him, but it's definitely not as loud and discordant as some of the things that he has done. Although the track Pig on this does give you a hint of it, because that's definitely the most aggressive thing on the album. But I mean, things like "Still My Beating Heart" and "Sex and Religion" are both really chill, awesome tracks.
Yeah.
Love it. It's a hell of a disc. So what do you got next?
Anthrax, Sound of White Noise. John DeBello is gone, and I can't remember the name of the singer, but he's the lead singer of Armored Saint comes in.
John Bush.
John Bush. And this is when I really start getting into Anthrax. I think that DeBello would change the way he sang when he came back. He sounds more like Bush. But that shrill kind of stuff that they had, almost like a punk speed thrash thing going that they had, I never really could get into it. Now, of the big four of the thrash guys, Anthrax has always been my favorite, but really it didn't start until here.
Well, that's the thing, is they got the Black Album treatment because this is a quote-unquote soft album. You know, definitely a lot less thrash. It's more heavy metal than you kind of would think of when you look at their back catalog at this point. But it's a solid listen. You know, you got Only, Black Lodge, Room for One More, Sodium Pentothal, Hypro Glow, all amazing tracks. And, you know, it's like, seriously, once you get done with this album, you are still singing some of these tracks.
Oh, yeah. I play this at the gym on a regular basis.
Yeah. It's maybe my favorite Anthrax album.
It's definitely a top tier. I think, what's the one that starts off with Go With The Devil You Know? Was that 2011's album? Whatever it is. But I you know, what did them in, and they said it themselves, is the next album, Stomp 442, is when they think they changed their sound too much. And also the cover of their album didn't even have their name on it. It's like they were trying to remove themselves from what people knew. And it didn't sell anywhere nearly as well as this one, which I think is really like one of their most successful albums.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's of that era of Anthrax, I think this is really the pinnacle, and they don't get any better than this album for actually even afterwards. They've got some strong stuff, but they've never hit this height or Among the Living heights. Those are like the two peaks of their career.
Yeah. I guess that's it for me. Anything else you want to say?
It's a hell of an album. Listen to it.
Yes. You're next.
All right. Sepultura's Chaos AD.
I tried. I lasted longer than I did with... wait, no. I think I did listen to all this. We got to stop listening to the albums 2 months ahead of time. And I need to make more time to revisit.
Oh, man. Well, this one's my fault. My fault for dragging it out. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I feel like I didn't hate this one. Not like Carcass, where I was like out in a minute. I feel like I made it about halfway through this, but I didn't really have much to say. I was like, it's okay. I mean, that's all I can really provide.
Oh man,
there's a line. There's a line usually with metal that I usually. Oh, I'm going too far away from the mic. Sorry. There's a line where I usually kind of don't cross or I never really repeat. And Sepultura is, I feel like, just slightly over that line.
Well, it's like the fusion of thrash metal and the groove metal stuff that you get from Pantera, specifically with this album. But it's like what they also would do is that they would mix in, especially with the next album, mix in Brazilian tribal and Latin music.
Yeah, I mean, I respect what they're doing, but I just couldn't latch on to the songs.
But this is like one of these things where they had started out as like this hardcore death metal band and kind of got thrashier as they went along, but at this point is kind of where they figured out that the groove stuff, the tribal stuff is where what set them apart from everybody. And so Refuse Resist is one of the best album openers ever. You just get that, beginning drum beats and stuff, and you're just like, oh shit, man, this is gonna go. And the guitar kicks in, and you're just, you can't help but start headbanging and jumping. But this thing never really stops. Even when you get to this instrumental acoustic track, Kaiwas, which sounds nothing like anything on this album, and you kind of even with this slower track, you're still just kind of like you can't help but really be in it. Well, I guess you can because you didn't like it as much. But yeah, I'm sorry, but in '96 you're probably going to be listening to Roots. So
No, that's cool. Oh, I remember Roots. I feel like I like that one a little bit better. I knew a guy who listened to it.
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. What I think is interesting about this album too is that they got Andy Wallace to produce and mix this. Which Andy Wallace, if you don't know, if you've listened to any popular music in the 90s or 2000s, you've probably heard something that he's mostly a sound engineer, mostly mixed stuff, but he also produced albums. So he's done stuff with Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine, Rancid, System of a
Spice
Down,
Girls.
Linkin Park. I mean, yeah, it's like if you've listened to a rock band, you've probably heard something Andy Wallace has had his hands on. So, yeah, that's about it for me. What do you got?
Cypress Hill, Black Sunday. This is almost my favorite year of hip hop. Last year was good. This has so many that I had trouble choosing from. And I gotta tell you, I've listened to Black Sunday so many fucking times. It's insane. In the membrane.
I will say this. I did myself a disservice because I listened to this after listening to one of the other albums that you had on here. And it doesn't stack up, which isn't fair to this because this is still a banger of an album.
Yeah, the first one's better. The first one's so creative. The DJ is just absolutely on fire. And it's like, this is when horror rap started becoming a thing. Do you remember that? I remember Kurt Loder talking about it as like, upcoming, the new trending, this is a terrible Kurt Loder impersonation, but the new trend in horror rap is now taking over the airwaves. It didn't. This is like the only song that was dark that would technically be called horror rap.
Well, there's something we might hear next year if I end up on my list that'll hit the horror rap label.
Yeah, I love. Now everybody knows Insane the Membrane. That's not the one.
Yeah.
Lick a Shot. Or no, Cock the Hammer. I'm sorry, Cock the Hammer. It's the one that everybody knows from the Last Action Hero soundtrack with that boom, 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 with the rain in the background. Boom, 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 boom. That's my favorite track on this. This is one of those that played when I first got my license, driving around in my truck, and me and my friends listening to music. This was a constant play.
Well, it's like for me, it's when the shit goes down and hits from the bong.
Yeah. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little putos. Tried to jack me. Seriously, I've listened to this so many fucking times. What goes around comes around, kid. Goes around.
It's a fun album. I really did dig it.
Yeah, I listened to some of their newer stuff, and they're still good, but there's something that they really had lined up with those first 3 or 4 albums that just, the DJ is picking really great tracks as a backing, the mix is good, and the balance between the 2 rappers. I mean, let's be fair, Be Real is the focus. The other guy just seems like he's like the guy in Mighty Mighty Boss Tones who hops in and goes, yeah, hopping around or just to get people excited.
Yeah.
That's why I don't even know the other dude's fucking names. Be Real and something.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I had heard, and it's definitely of the Cypress Hill albums. It is my favorite one.
It's produced by DJ Muggs, but it's mostly it's just mostly Cypress Hill stuff. I was trying to see if he worked on anything else that I had known, but mostly like these underground mixtapes and stuff like that, and his solo stuff. Your turn. I got excited. I got truly excited. That was.
Well, does this one excite you? Wu-Tang Clan. Enter the Wu-Tang. 36 Chambers.
Everybody knows the line from this. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. I screwed that up. Sorry. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. But I love the PG version of this, where it's like, Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to mess with. It's almost like a little kid from Little Rascals just putting his hands up, Snobby.
Oh, man. It's like, this is one of those groups where I think you either like them or you hate them.
What I don't like, there is something I don't like, and it's a lot of the albums at this time. Because Naughty by Nature almost made it on this list, too. And I just noticed there's a trend in 92 to 94 of sketches that just don't fucking work. They're pointless, but there's always a sketch where it's like, yo, how you doing or whatever, and then they're talking over on the street corner, and all of a sudden, look at that motherfucker over there, and they start screaming at him, oh, kick your ass, and then usually shots fired, and it's pointless. It's not a sketch. I don't know what it is, but I hate it.
Well, it's like interstitials and stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell you anything. It's just like,
No.
okay, great, awesome. See, you didn't really care for Third Base, Derelicts of Dialect. You kind of liked a little bit of it. But what I thought they did great was the sketches were very unique, very weird. They all told a story. They weren't showing off. They were just like a step into this strange land.
Yeah, but that's just it. I never really pay attention to sketches too much. I'm just here for music. As long as those things don't get in my way, I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny is you listen to this album and you kind of get a sense of who are the guys behind the scene putting the album together, building the structure, whatever. And then you get the guys who are more the showmen. I mean, automatically you see Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard are like the shining stars on this first album. It gets better, I think, for everybody as the albums go on. But there are like Raekwon and the RZA and stuff like that. In the GZA, they kind of step back a little bit, and they seem to be like the backbone, like the drummer of Wu-Tang Clan.
Well, it's like RZA. Well, RZA's the one who basically did all the production work on this, and it's very interesting because he has of like all these songs that rap songs that we've listened to, even with Tribe Called Quest. It's RZA has I would say, a very unique way of producing those tracks that you know a Wu-Tang song when you hear it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just the kung fu clips that they use. It's the fact that he incorporates the music with the beats or whatever, and it gives it a unique sound. And that's what I appreciate about hip-hop, that I feel like I just kind of started testing out albums from 1994, and it feels like all of a sudden everybody stopped having a unique sound and just like, oh, we'll pick a track that was super popular, to get the memory juices, nostalgia going, and it's like the P. Diddy, the Puff Daddy formula that would be so strong for the 90s. And so as the 90s go on, I'm going to start dipping out of hip-hop again, and it'll come back like with Jurassic 5, because they go back to the formula that Tribe Called Quest and Wu-Tang and Third Base were using.
Yeah, people who actually are sampling songs and making interesting music as opposed to making pop songs.
Right, yes. Yeah, and you're not going to have any female singer in there for the hooks.
Yeah. So what do you got?
Let me look at my list. I have Smashing Pumpkins' debut with Siamese Dream.
Well, not their debut, because I think we did their debut. No, Guilt was the debut, or Guilt,
okay.
Not Guilt, or whatever the other one.
It probably was like their indie label, or whatever. This is like their big debut. Geffen's pushing them. MTV's got them everywhere, and I remember just really liking this album. But you're fucking right. What am I talking about? I remember we talked about this during the whole grunge off we did 8 months ago or something like that, maybe a year ago, where we were putting albums together, and I offered Smashing Pumpkins. You said they're not part of the grunge movement. What are they? Just regular alternative?
I think of them. I think that we associate them more as an alternative band. Although, I guess their debut is the closest thing to grunge that they had.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely. I'm very hesitant to say any grunginess about it.
I guess. Where are they from anyway? They're not even from the north, are they? They're from Georgia or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. In my head, though, because they burst at almost the same time as, the grunge movement or whatever. Remember we were assigning that to everybody all of a sudden, unless they were very, very unique. Like, they're grunge. They're dark and murky. And you're right. Smashing Pumpkins isn't. They're very emotional. They're melodic, and they have more of a brighter palette, I guess, lyrically and visually.
Yeah, now I'll say this. I think this is a good album, but it's mostly, I think, because the hits on this album are amazing, and then just kind of everything else is just kind of there.
You are correct. This is one of those I hemmed and hawed about making the list. Their albums do, like the next two, I believe, are much better. But, I think they were really working to find where they wanted to go. I feel like this was one of those albums where they had produced half of it, and the label said, okay, let's get you a new producer. Let's get you in there with a new sound or whatever. And so they just had all these tracks they already spent the money on, and that's the backfiller,
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you have another band on there that has a follow-up to a debut, and I think this one is a little bit more of a successful version of that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, as I said, kind of boring for the most part, except for when you get those hits and then you're just like, oh yeah, this is the fucking jam.
All right, your turn.
All right, Paradise Lost, Icon. Now, this is not going to be really the first album of the gothic metal genre. I really have to look it up to see which one that could really be. But it's the first album that was actually referred to being called it, which is funny because this band has an album called Gothic that was released prior to it.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't a goth metal album. It was more like, because these guys were like a death metal, doom metal band, you know, heavy and dark and but growly vocals and stuff. But over time they kind of started leaning into this direction. And do you remember anything about this one?
Nope.
Ouch. Okay. You remember the Sisters of Mercy album I had you listen to?
Yes, I actually quite enjoyed that one.
This is basically like a heavier version of Sisters of Mercy.
Who would you say are like I don't know what goth metal is. Who are the big ones?
Typo Negative.
Oh, okay, I know who they are.
There's other ones, but if you're gonna ever say the band that's really associated with it, that'd be Typo Negative. But what else you got?
I am on this Young Black Teenagers, Dead End Kids doing lifetime bids. The funniest name ever for a band that has only white kids.
My notes. These are my notes to it. I don't know if I can finish this one.
It's fine. I get it. I understand that a lot of the hip hop that I liked at the time, like I didn't know Tribe, I didn't know Wu-Tang at the time. I knew like basically if they were white and they were rappers, I probably had their album. I don't mean that as in a racist way. It's just whatever. It was what it was. So like House of Pain, Beastie Boys. Did not own Vanilla Ice, though I still know all the lyrics to Ice Ice Baby. And Young Black Teenagers. I just remember seeing that video for Spin the Bottle or Tap the Bottle, and thinking this is so catchy. I went and got the album, and I've listened to it over and over and over to the point where I think a lot of why I like this album is nostalgia. It's very, very poppy. You can tell this is like, oh, Marky Mark, you know, and all these guys are making huge record sales by making very, almost bland, mainstream. We have nothing really to say. We're just here to have a fun time.
It's designed to be safe.
Yes, but also I think they have a really good DJ, and I think that's a lot for me. If you have a good DJ, you can almost buy me past mediocre lyrics. So I understand why you didn't like this one.
Yeah, my notes contain just like, this is just no.
It's teenage fluff. It just is.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. Now, remember how I mentioned Typo Negative last time? Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses. Again, this album is a fucking killer album.
Yeah,
man.
I don't have anything bad to say. I don't remember a whole lot, but I do remember this being like, okay, I like this one.
Now, there's things that I would totally understand if you didn't dig, because it's designed to be, I don't want to say not accessible, but it's designed to be like a dark joke. Because
it also felt like a mood setter, didn't it?
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of songs about love and loss, but then it's also blended with these noisy sonicascapes like Fay Ray Come Out and Play and Dark Side of the Womb. And then there's these dark, sarcastic songs like Kill All White People and We Hate Everyone. But this is the album that has their two most well-known songs, Christian Women and Black Number One, which Black Number One is effectively the signature song of the band. Blood and Fire had a remixed version that was on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. And the vocalist, Peter Steele, this man has a voice so heavy, it's a brutal weapon. This guy just can beat you to death with his voice. And also, just for shits and giggles, did you know Peter Steele was in Playgirl?
No, why would I know this? I don't know. Because it's a weird factoid that I know. Okay.
And apparently he was attractive enough to put, towards the female gaze.
Yeah, but did he have the meat on display? Was it worth the picture?
Probably, I don't know.
I'm gonna go look. I don't mind looking at some wang.
But yeah, again, this is definitely one that.
Wait, his name was what again? Peter Steele?
Peter Steele.
That's a fucking porno name right there.
So what's your next one?
Peter Steele shows his penis and all. Pearl Jam fell up to their debut with Versus. Obviously not the big hits. Here's the weird part is I listened to the two albums back to back, and I forgot that I knew. Oh shit! What was the one before this?
Oh,
Is it just Pearl Jam? It can't be just
10.
10. That I knew every single song. It's one of those that, like, you got on cassette, you listen with your buddies all the time. Versus was the one, and same thing for Vitalogy, where it wasn't listening with your friends. You kind of took it in. You know, you kind of listened to yourself, and they weren't as, like, radio friendly, I think. They were more pensive and introspective. It almost as if they were trying to walk back their massive stardom a little bit, I think. They weren't going for the radio hits, even though there was, like, Daughter was huge. But I feel like there's just more sophistication in this one. I know it's not as catchy, but I like this in Vitalogy better than 10.
Well, what's funny is when we did the grunge off, I found that I never gave 10 the shot that I really should have. And then it kind of made me wonder, have I been all wrong about Pearl Jam all these years?
Is it because they were too big? There literally is a point where Jeremy played every single fucking hour, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I to this day, I still cannot listen to Jeremy. I just can't. It's the same thing with a lot of Nirvana. They just played it too much.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think this is okay. I think a part of this is it's a lot more refined and polished than 10 was, which kind of removed a lot of the charm and personality that you get in 10. It's like, it's a decent rock album, but it's not a good follow-up to this great grunge album. Although I will say Bloods was a pretty sick and funky track.
All right, your turn.
Let's see, for my next one, how about Machines of Loving Grace, Concentration?
Were they on the Crow soundtrack or something
Yes,
like that?
they were.
Okay, that's why I knew
that's-
the band, I knew the sound, and I was like, wait a second. Yeah, I actually was not expecting this. I thought it was going to be more of a lower key band. You know, I might get a little bored. I enjoyed it.
And that's the shame is everybody knows that song, Golgotha Tenement Blues from The Crow, and that is literally it. Like, I mean, there's a remix of a song called The Richest Junkies Live that's a Hackers soundtrack. But let's be honest, the only thing people remember from Hackers are the Prodigy songs. Basically nothing that they never translated, into album sales from the knowledge that they got from a high-profile movie. But this album, along with stuff, of course, by KMFDM, Nine Inch Nails, and Thrill Kill Cult, were like the gateways into industrial forming. Like Butterfly Wings from this album found its way into random stuff in the late 90s and 2000s. Like it's on the Punisher Warzone soundtrack, this horror film called Devour. And, it's a song that still seems to have legs, all 20 something years after it's debuted.
Yeah, which is kind of rare for that genre, right? I feel like a lot of those songs were just of the moment and they threw them away forever.
Yeah, it's a shame because this is a band that really should have been bigger than they were, and they just never got the fair shake that they deserved. So, what is your next one?
Tribe Called Quest, and this album is called Midnight Marauders.
Okay, I will start it with this. Is this as good as their first two albums?
No.
No. Are you fucking nuts? How? Those two albums are fucking pristine entities that everyone should own.
Yeah. Scenario
But
is the greatest hip-hop video of all time. And it's not just the video, the song is unbelievably good. So it is hard for Midnight Marauders to compete, I think what Midnight Marauders is doing that the other albums didn't do was create a world, an atmosphere. That's really the only thing they could have done, I think. They could not top those first two. They just couldn't. So they tried to create like this introspective little world that they created. And I think it's very in-depth. very I would say more of a mind game is what they're trying to do. They're not trying to outdo each other with sound. They're trying to do it with content. Does that make any sense, or is that gibberish?
No, I get what you're saying. And that's the thing is, this album is great. It's not. Is it as good as those two? Hell no. You can't really do that ever again. But Tribe, they're one of the most interesting and dynamic groups ever. I mean, seriously, I knew "Oh My God" from this because I wasn't as familiar with this album as I was those first two. But just out of the fucking gate, Steve Ditko kicked my fucking ass. And the thing is, just it never really. It was always fun. I had a great time listening to this album all the way through. And God, I got to think about it. It's like, have Tribe ever really had a bad album?
No, I don't. I really don't think so. I mean, I don't listen to the newer stuff as much, but it's still great. They never phone it in.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is everything about this is fun, and again, if you like those first two albums by Tribe, you'll definitely like this one.
Do you feel like this is the album though where Q-Tip is now taking over? And
I think I was reading something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like he's taking over. And it's not just this, but he's also like on a lot of other albums. He's the guy who's being asked because he had a very unique voice. Now Fife is nowhere nearly as bad, but he also doesn't have a standout voice, and I think that's what other people were noticing. But isn't that what caused the tension in the band? They kind of split up, is because instead of being a group, it was Q-Tip and then the rest of the guys.
Yeah, I think that I remember reading that was what was going on, and I mean, he was a huge driving force for the music even prior to that. So I could understand why Ego could take the wheel for some of that.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, there was a long gap for them where they disappeared for 15, 17 years or something like that, and it just. I was so happy when they got back together. I was like, what? It's actually happened.
Now, I'll say this. I do think that final album of theirs is amazing as well.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
All right. Orbital. Orbital 2, also known as the Brown Album.
The Brown sound.
Well, again, it's basically just a self-titled album, and the only difference between it and their first album is that the cover art was brown. I mean, literally the exact same cover as the first one, because it's basically just their logo. I think there's like a little lines and stuff, and then the tracks listing on the cover. But that's literally it. It's just first one's green, second one's brown.
Yeah, this is another one of those mood setters. And at first I wasn't sure. I had never listened to Orbital before. Or did you have to listen to the first one and I don't remember it?
No, we haven't done Orbital.
And it was more of a mood setter. At first, I was like, "What kind of band is this?" I didn't know exactly what they were going for. But once you relax and you get into it, it's just like it's like atmosphere, like that kind of like they have a very particular sound, a feeling they want to set, and they're good at it.
Yeah, because it's this mix of ambient, trance, and a little bit of light breakbeat techno. It's a lot less radiant, dancey as especially the stuff off their debut, but it's like you said, it's kind of a mood piece. And the most well-known song off this is the song "Halcyon and On," which was featured at the end of the Mortal Kombat soundtrack or film. And it's a very poppy, happy song. And then you've also got stuff like "Lush," 3-1 and 3-2. Which are just like God, how long is those songs together? Because it's effectively one song broken up into two parts. But yeah, it's basically the most fun of Orbital's albums as well.
My turn?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Del the Funky Homo Sapien. No need for alarm. The big old follow up. No real hits off this one. There's nothing. It's just sometimes you get comfort. I've never listened to sound before, but there's a sound that I'm looking for in hip hop, and Del really had it down, especially with his future bands. Every time he would evolve into something new, he always had something unique, something uncommon that he was using in his music, and he had a hell of a fucking flow and a very particular voice, and I just really like this album.
Honestly, this is maybe my least favorite of his solo works, because like the beats are great. So like listening to the music is fun, but the songs as a whole just don't really work for me as well. Like Whack MCs and Wrong Place are good tracks, but it's one of those things where it's like he's got the sophomore slump album. Sometimes you get that, you got that really good debut, and then whatever you do is not going to really match up to it. And that's kind of what it feels like for this one for me.
Yeah, it can't compare to I Wish My Brother George Was Here. It just can't. But, it's just like the way it was in Tribe Called Quest. It had something I was looking for, and it fit that need.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with the Dell album in general. So, it's like, I didn't have a bad time listening to it, but it's just, it's not as not the one I like as much.
It's no Tap the Bottle. Your turn. Is this the last album for us?
This is the last one, so do you have anything that didn't make your list?
Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell 2 really was originally my number 10. But then I remembered something that I missed on my list or whatever. Look, I like Meatloaf, and I love the epic excess of all his songs. I mean, they're really excessive. But there's a joy in how ridiculously over-the-top operatic they are. But I just nudged it off a little bit for another album.
Nothing else, just that one?
No, I left my list in the house, and I lost half of it.
How dare you? Okay, well, a couple of ones that I ended up passing on. Billy Idol's Cyberpunk.
Oh, I like that one. That Shocks of the System was such a great video.
Let's see, Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville. Breeder's Last Splash.
Yeah, that almost made mine.
Yeah, Infectious Groove's Sarah Sippis' Arc.
Same thing, almost made it.
Motorhead's Bastards.
I don't remember if I even listened to that one.
Morbid Angel's Covenant.
No, you know I didn't listen to that one.
Wasp's The Crimson Idol, which actually came out in 92. Oops.
That happens. Honestly, Wikipedia is weird sometimes. Do you ever get to the bottom of the list and it shows you undated albums? You're like, well, what the hell do I do with this?
Yeah, I know. It doesn't really help. But if you go and look at it, like, say, their wiki article, then it tells you when it came out, and you feel like a jackass. Let's see. Entombed's Wolverine Blues, which... an album unrelated to the Marvel character, yet the label went and made a deal with Marvel to cross-promote the album and included a mini-comic in the booklet and threw Wolverine on the cover, all against the band's wishes.
That's weird. Okay.
It's a good album, too, but it's just weird. And finally, I would have done KFDM's Angst, unless... but I decided I'm going to go with their next album.
Okay.
But my final one... since you don't have the list in front of you, I was going to ask you how you think you pronounce the band name, but Autechre is the band's name.
That's how you say it?
Autechre, yeah.
Autechre. Okay. I remember liking this one quite a bit.
Yeah, In Conabula is the album title.
Yeah, surprised that I actually like this, because I saw it and I go, oh boy.
Well, what's kind of funny is this is really their only accessible album. Because these guys, they make very complex IDM, and a lot of it became very complex cacophonies of noise and bleeps and bloops. But this is like a much more laid-back ambient album. Like, it's Cowpole Intro, Bass Cadet, 444, and Eggshell are like favorites of mine. But I'll say this, if you want to give yourself a challenge, look up Gantz Graph. It's this amazing video where they have this abstract object reacting to the music, so you get this visual way to kind of process what you're hearing.
Okay.
But I'll say this, it's not noise or pointless noise, it's controlled chaos. So, yeah. But yeah, this is a really good ambient album. It's definitely worth checking out.
All right, and my final album, one that I remembered at the last minute and added. Well, not the last minute. You know when we made these lists 2 months ago. You remember how I told you I used to get those monthly VHS tapes filled with like 10 music videos?
Yep.
And on was almost always like hard stuff, like, you know, like heavy metal and stuff. Oh, by the way, there's a video that was on the end of this tape that bugs me to this day because I have no idea who it was. It was a guy with a nerd haircut. Like, he looked like the classic, like, Saved by the Bell nerd, you know, little fucking tie, white shirt, buzzed hair, glasses that were taped together. But he had a fucking killer a singing voice, whatever. And he had 2 microphones that were taped together in the middle, and he would just flip the microphone around and sing in each end. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
All right, whatever it is, one day I will find this. They also had a song on there called Hips, Lips, Tits, Power.
Oh, I know exactly that song. That's a Pig Face.
Okay, what is it?
That's a Pig Face song.
Okay, so that might help me track down if I put those all together. But on there was a video that stuck out like a sore thumb because it didn't fit in at all. It was not hard rock. It was like, I'm not even sure if you would consider it alternative at the time. I don't know what you would consider it. But I hear this dun 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 dun, and I'm like, horns in hard rock? What the hell is happening? And it was one of the catchiest fucking songs I've ever heard in my life, and it comes from the Mighty Mighty Bosstones from the album Don't Know How to Party. Look, I know some people hate ska. I know this. I don't know why. You people are just no fun. How do you feel about ska? Because you're going to suffer the rest of this decade.
It depends. There's some stuff I like, but overall,
yeah,
it's not my favorite.
There's 3 schools. There's the one that everybody probably knows is the California, the SoCal sound, you know, the Real Big Fish sound, where it was more poppy. And then there was like that weird Midwest, a lot of them were Christian bands, but it was very low rent, like, hey, we got these bands from high school, they got together in the garage, you know, that kind of low grade sound. But then there was like the more punk, almost core version, where it's heavier. It has horns, but it's clearly born out of punk, not so much like fun poppy rock, whatever, you know, pop punk. And Mighty Mighty Bosstones, I think, were the first ska band in a decade to really break through. And then you would get like the Urge and a couple other bands that were harder than like the Real Big Fish, Goldfinger sound. And I just this changed something for me. That you could have this kind of music and it'd be social, political, whatever. And yeah, I had experienced Rage Against the Machine the year before, but this felt different to me. And I think I'm probably alone in how much I love Mighty Mighty Bosstones. Though I heard that he was an anti-vaxxer now, and that sucks.
Well, it's like I only know the 2 big songs by him, so this was a new experience for me, and I did not like it.
Sorry.
But I will say, I'll tell you this. I didn't bail on the album. I just basically kind of skipped my way through it.
Yeah.
I think I maybe have only heard 1 or 2 of the songs from beginning to end, but I couldn't tell you what they were.
I have to tell you this. He's not a good singer. He's not. He writes good lyrics, and they have good, like, kind of like choruses, but they didn't learn how to sing, create a song that was radio friendly until the 1997 album that everybody knows, like Knock on Wood was the song. Right? Knock on wood. Oh, fuck. I can't remember the biggest song.
No,
Jesus Christ.
It's
So Sad to Say? No?
No. Impression That I Get, and the other one.
Thank you. Not Roy. Yeah, Impression That I Get. I'm a fucking idiot. Jeez. Yeah, so, you're going to have to suffer some more ska this decade. I'm sorry.
Well, who knows? Maybe it'll be stuff I like. Maybe it'll be stuff that I will find that I like.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to be dealing with some heavy metal
I know.
So.
I feel like we started off like kind of on the same page, and we're kind of going in different directions. But the point of the show is not necessarily, and I don't want people to get like, oh, these guys don't like each other in their music. I mean, that's not the point. The point is what we personally, like my top 10 albums, his top 10 albums, we listen to them, we discuss it, but we're not trying to make each other, like guilt each other into liking the albums. Because then it's not a conversation. It's kind of like pleasing the audience. You know, I can't think of what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not going easy on you, but it's also it's the idea is that I want to be challenged, and I do expect to challenge you on stuff.
Yeah. So that is our top 10 each of 1993, and it is time for the plugs. I'm bald, I need hair plugs, but no, John, go ahead. Where can we find you online?
I'm on Twitter, MYUZISHION. That is musician.
All right, and Facebook, Twitter, and all your podcast hosts under Hit Rewind, and that is everybody. Have a good night.
See you guys.